Good afternoon once more to everyone, and thank you for joining today's Zoom discussion on adulthood NASCAM, navigating one's way through adulthood. We want to know today how true the analogy that adulthood is a scam is. I know that most of us have heard this, and we all have our opinions on the analogy, but today we have very seasoned speakers, experienced speakers who have been engaged in youth activism with us, and they are going to share with us how true this analogy is. One of our speakers is a medical doctor by profession, and he's also a clinical psychologist, so he knows all the nitty-gritties of mental health and all the stages that you go through while we are navigating our way through adulthood. We also have a very young lady with us. I admire her so much and what she does. She's a whole lot of things, but today we only included 3 of her portfolios for the purpose of this meeting. Her name is Miss Mercedes Asamani. She is a youth activist. She's also an entrepreneur, and she's a social commentator. She does a whole lot of other things that we have not included today. So please, there are several reactions on the call. So if you have anything to share, or if you would like to react to anything that is being said while the discussion is underway, kindly use any of the reactions we have. If you have any questions as well, I would implore you to put them in the comment section, and I'll be glad to ask our panelists for you. So please, welcome once more. My name is Kumba Tamba. I am a youth activist. I am also a student at the University of Cape Coast, and I am the founder of the Better Me Initiative, a youth group that is targeted towards building up youth and exposing them to opportunities that will scale up their professional and their personal life. So thank you very much for being with us today. We are digging right into our discussion on adulthood NASCAM. How true? So our speakers, I'm going to start with you, Miss Mercedes Asamani, and I'll be glad if you could kindly turn on your video if it's possible. So please, what's your... Thank you very much, Dr. Newman-Arthur. I'm so glad to see you after several years.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Your voice is a bit down, so I can't hear you too well. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Mercedes, can you also speak so that
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining. I'm really glad to have you on today. Thank you for accepting to do this with me. And I believe that a whole lot of other youth would learn from this, because you're going to upload the video on YouTube. So, I mean, the world gets to see and then hear from you. Thank you very much for doing this. So I'd like you to share with us, what's your experience been like so far growing up in Ghana specifically as a youth?
The question is quite funny. Growing up in Ghana, it's a big deal, eh?
It's a big deal.
All right. It's a full-time experience to grow up in Ghana, but I think it's a beautiful experience as well. On the topic, adulthood has come. I don't want to state my stance now, but I think that growing up, we oversimplified what adulthood is about. Probably that's why we are all saying adulthood is a scam, adulthood is a scam. Because growing up, a lot of times where we wished to be adults, it was because we wanted to eat our own preferred meals. We wanted to buy ourselves what we wanted. We wanted to go out at any time that we wanted. We wanted to be able to change the TV channels to watch what we preferred. We wanted to watch TV till late hours. It was always these trivial things that wanted us to be adults, that made us desire to be adults. And we lost touch with the fact that these came with responsibilities. So for me, I think some of these trivial things we focused on growing up is the reason why we are all singing the tune "Adulthood is a scam."
Okay, that's interesting to note. I think I do agree with you because for me, from my personal experience growing up, what I thought of was being independent and not being under parental control. I don't think I ever thought of what it meant to be independent. I don't think I thought of that. All I wanted to is being able to do my own thing, being able to experience my own thing. If I want to go here, I can go. If I want to come back, I can come. So I think that you made a very salient point by saying that we all did not foresee what adulthood was, the nitty-gritties of adulthood, but rather we're just, I mean, if I could say, daydreaming on what we thought adulthood is and what we wanted to have as adults. That's very interesting to note. Okay, so Dr. Newman-Arthur, my question to you was, what's your view on the analogy that adulthood has come, and particularly what's your opinion of youth having this position?
Just to add to what Mercedes said, I think that if you have $1 million in your account, you are working in a very, very good place. You can buy whatever you want to buy. You can go wherever you want to go. I don't think you would say that. So I think that usually that statement comes up when you don't have control over your own life as an adult and you are not achieving things. Because if you are really achieving stuff, you'll even be happy you're an adult. So that is what I think. I think it's just filled, when people fail in life, one of the ways to comfort themselves is to come up with all kinds of things. Sincerely, I think there's even a song for it. Now, when I heard the song, it sounded so odd. It sounded so off for me. And I was wondering why people were enjoying it. Because it didn't make sense to me. Because if you are really achieving something with your life, I don't think that you would even come to that realization. Then again, I think it's also failure of parenting. I'm into psychology, so I know the impact of parenting on adult life. If parents do a good job, you are expectant of a good adulthood, and I don't think you're going to struggle when you grow up, because see, childhood is the preparatory ground for adulthood. So most of the time when parenting fails, people struggle to cope and adjust with adulthood-related things. Adults are a reflection of their childhood. It's as simple as that. So if growing up, you were able to handle challenges well, your parents were able to groom you well and prepare you for adulthood, I don't think you're going to struggle. Yes. So those are the two things that come to mind.
Okay, so your position is one, we have, or a lot of you tend to have that thought or that line of thinking because maybe they did not grow up having good parental care, and also because we do not have the money, we do not count the bills.
No, not really, not good parental care,
Okay.
but the right parenting. The two are different.
Parenting.
The right parenting. You can have very, very good parents who still did not teach you what you needed to know.
Okay, so I think that gives me a follow-up question. What is the right parenting about?
To be well, the goal of childhood is adulthood. So what it means is that parents tend to overdo things for their kids, so their kids can't be responsible for anything or survive in the real world. That is where the problem is. So, for example, you're growing up and you grow up in a home where they do everything for you. They tell you everything. They dictate everything for you. You have servants here and there. Your mother is virtually responsible for everything, and you just go with the flow. You are not being prepared for adulthood. So a lot of things, some parents say that, oh, me, I struggled when I was young, so I don't want my children to suffer. So they tend to overdo things. So you are raising a child who would go into a real world with real problems. Marriage is real. Career is real. Finding your feet is real. Real things. So a lot of parents are overdoing things by overly protecting and overly doing things for their kids. And I think that is wrong. You need to be able to expose your kids to the real world and teach them how to how to deal with the challenges in the real world. And that is how they can survive. I remember there was this home where the child is only child. I think she's about 10 years or so. And she can't even cross the street herself at 10 years. You are in soup. Because life is not like that at all. So a lot of parents, in the name of, I don't want my kids to also suffer the way I suffered, so they overdo things. And whenever they give excuses for their kids not being responsible at home, sometimes your kids, you don't teach them how to wash, how to sweep, how to cook. You don't teach them how to, even step out themselves. You're overly protecting them. You are actually damaging them, for the real world. So a lot of parents, they may be good parents in terms of all the things that, you have to provide for your child, love them on a certain level and all that. But in terms of training them to live and survive in the real world, that is where I think there are a lot of problems.
All right. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. So, Ms. Asamani, if you don't mind, we'd like you to share some of your experiences with us. So, from what Dr. Newman-Arthur has said, did you come from a home where, if you don't mind actually, but if it's going to pose a challenge, please feel free to skip that question. But did you come from a home where, in Dr. Newman's words, you had good parents and you were prepped for the highs and lows of adulthood? Because I see, from my point of view, I see that you've got it quite together. I know you do a couple of things and you are doing well at almost everything that you are doing, at least from my point of view. Were you prepped for that? And if you were prepped, was it your parents that prepped you? If not, my question is loaded. So maybe you answer everything together. If it wasn't your parents that prepped you, how did you prep yourself, or how were you prepped for adulthood?
Okay. So growing up, I had like I didn't grow up with my mom around because my mom had traveled, but my dad was quite supportive and he was doing okay. So I would say with him, I had a lot of things done for me. But even in the midst of all those, my dad was someone who would want to tell you what is to be expected. So what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. As at 8, we're already discussing what I want to do. As at 8, I was really already inquisitive when my elder sisters went for driving lessons and I want to do same and all. So in as much as he was there to guide and provide, he also gave you the room to explore and survive. So in his absence, that has guided me till now. So he played his part. He taught me the need to survive in whichever environment you find yourself. Even if you have in abundance, you still have to survive it anyway. Because like Dr. Newman said, a lot of us were spoon-fed in our childhood. And it's very difficult for such people to survive in the real world. If there's no one there doing something for them, they can't survive. And I have cousins who are like that. They had everything good. So they didn't even see the need to explore certain opportunities, the need to fight for this, the need to survive here and there. They didn't see the need. They didn't even have the opportunity to, because everything was almost provided on a silver platter. But my experience was quite different. Though my dad was around to provide and guide, you still had to do something for yourself. When I was in John Tay in class 4, class 4, I had teamed up. I was a boarder then. I had teamed up with another mate of mine in the boarding school, and we were buying sachet bags to be selling in the dormitory for our mates in class 4. And that's not because I had not paid my fees. I had actually paid my fees, but I don't know where all those came from. But as at then, I was just looking for my own ways to make my own thing, get things going. So when my dad passed, it wasn't really much of a big deal because I knew I had to survive. I was surviving anyway. And that has guided me till date. So I think that as parents, as Dr. Newman said, in as much as we want to give our children the best care and all, we should also let them know there's a real world out there beyond your home, beyond that comfort zone where you are given everything, where you are provided for. Because when it gets to that point, you will be stuck. and you may not be able to know where to turn or what to do. And that's where I think he terms it right parenting, which I think we should focus on and talk about a lot, because these days on social media, it seems that's barely spoken about. Even when you bring it up, it's as though you want to be someone to be a wicked parent, and no. But these are things we should talk about. Some of us were saving at very young ages. We will save, we'll do susu, and you come back home and your mother has taken the money and even chopped. If you go and complain, they'll say, can you account for the breast milk you have taken and all?
What do you need
Then
the
you are
money
saying, yeah, what do you need the money for? And if I ask you to give me my breast milk, can you provide? Like all those emotional like when you chop. But we were saving. But these days, it seems the kids today, they have things too easy, which is good, but which is bad too, because a situation change, a lot may not be able to survive. And then there's a psychological aspect to where people are easily thrown in, and but if you have been prepped and you have that survival instinct, you would survive. Like, you know how to deal with situations no matter what comes your way.
Right. So if I got you clearly, for you, you had right parenting. Okay, I think it's a term that I've learned from today, because all we know is having good parents. So for my parents, for instance, they provided for me. I don't think I was ever really home because of school fees issues. I think I just remember once, that was once in junior high school. I think that in that time, the whole class was virtually sacked. So there was no class actually. We all went home. Yes. So if I'm getting you right, you got right parenting. But what about, do you have an idea of people who did not get the right parenting? And can you maybe share on anything else aside right parenting that could help someone prep for adulthood? How can we navigate that path? Because obviously, like you said, in our day and age, there are a lot of parents in quotes, but very few right parents, if I can borrow the word from Dr. Newman. So what do you think that we can, adults or growing up, children who are growing up, can do if they don't have right parents, so that they are well prepped for adulthood? Because I think that we have all established preparation is very essential.
I don't know what a child can do at this age, but these kids today are really inquisitive. But I think the adults like mine, though my dad was there to guide them. No, my dad passed on early, but there are certain things that I saw happening at home, what I saw my elder sisters doing. It stirred up in me the interest to also do certain things for myself. So away from your parent being in the frontline guidance through this adulthood or childhood phase, the people around you in your space would even let you know what you are supposed to do or what you're supposed to be prepared for. Because my elder sisters then, one was in UCC. That was when I was a child. The age difference is really huge. Another was also in schools, and they'll come home with sometimes they'll come home with class exercises or test, and then they'll mark, and I'll be sitting there with them and looking through and all. Like, there are things that they did that I saw that encouraged me to do stuff for myself. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some cousins of mine who were not privileged like I was to learn to survive right from the beginning. Like, there's some cousins of mine that they were given everything on a silver platter. I have a cousin who, even at 35 then, she didn't even have a bank account. She didn't see the need to. Wow. Because she was given everything. Yes. I don't even know if she still has a bank account or not. I doubt. Probably she's surviving on Momo. She never saw the need to. Because she was always given it, like she was the pet of the house, excuse me to say, but she was given everything she wanted. So there's no need to strive for more. But some of us, along the line, when things change, you have to do stuff for yourself. So you can't sit around waiting for anybody to come and tell you this. the little you've seen around, the little enterprising people you've seen around you that you know, oh, they're doing this for themselves, they're doing that for themselves, they're doing that. Why can't I do this for you? It will encourage you to also do something for yourself. So I wouldn't say, in as much as we advise parents that in as much as we want to provide and guide, in our guidance, we should let our kids know the real world out there, provide, but don't let them earn. For me, if I become a parent, my principle is you have to earn everything you have. Earn it. Because if you are not earning anything for yourself, you take everything for granted. You are unable to survive when there's a need to. Let them earn whatever they desire. Even if it's through little tasks that you make them do, let them earn it so that they see the need to earn, survive, and fight for whatever they want. Not that every day, because you demand, they just give it to you. Because you demand, they just give it to you. Away from our parents. We adults around the younger folks, our little siblings, our nieces and nephews, we should also show up and be seen to be doing something for ourselves. Because the environment we grow up in mostly better prepare us or do us bad in this whole adulthood journey.
Right. Thank you very much. So, two things I gleaned from you. Once again, right parenting, and then secondly, the need for adults around children in this day and age to play the role of good parents or right parents, or helping children prep for adulthood. You also spoke about inclusivity. So for say you do not have the right parents, maybe you may have a good parent, but then there's also the need for you, but you are not being prepped for adulthood. There is the need for you to be inquisitive. So out of inclusivity, you're going to explore, and then, well, you can prepare for adulthood. That's great. I have a comment here I would like to read before I take the views of Dr. Newman-Arthur again. Gigi says that I am learning a lot from this discussion. I love all the points being raised, particularly about how resilience should be built prior to adulthood. I must also add my thought that children grow up children grow feeling entitled. So children who grow actually feeling entitled are likely to be broken in the face of life events. Okay, that's an interesting view. Dr. Newman-Arthur, so we come back to you. What do you think a young person growing up or a child growing up can do to ensure that even though I do not have the right parents, what can I do essentially to prepare myself for adulthood? Because sometimes as a child, not every child is inquisitive. And not every child is like Mercedes or like myself who wants to explore. Some children are quite laid back. What do you think are some of the things that we can take advantage of in order to prepare ourselves for adulthood?
Okay, so maybe I would mention just about 3 things that I think is critical. The first one has to do with you need to change how you think. You shouldn't think like where you come from or where you were raised from, because life goes beyond that. The world is so vast that where you come from is very, very tiny. And obviously, if there are things happening around you, you may think that is what life is. So anybody who succeeded, they have a way of thinking about life. So it starts from there. So any opportunity to influence how you think, you need to grab it. That is the first thing. Change how you think. Even the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Right? So your thinking is everything. People are products of their thinking and not the events, that they encounter. So your thinking is very, very important. Personally, for me in Ghana, sometimes I even forget I live in Ghana. I forget, sincerely, I forget that we even have a government. I don't even, sometimes it's strange. I think I live in the world, not in Ghana. So what it means is that the world actually is the field, or the opportunities in the world is what I must be able to, take advantage of. So I forget I live in Ghana, and I don't think like someone who is in Ghana and things like that. My mind is all over the place. So it starts from here. So blacks are like this because of how we think. We still blame the colonial masters for our problems. Meanwhile, we are responsible for everything. And even when you go to the US and those places, you realize that it's the thinking. You go to black communities and you know this is a black community because they think like black people. Everybody is blaming the whites for. We acknowledge their racism, but how are the black people contributing to their own problems? That is where it starts from. It starts from, okay, how are we as blacks contributing to our own problems? So you go to the US, a single motherhood rate is about 70%. And people can give you all kinds of reasons why supremacy and racism and all those things. Yes, those things are there. But how are we as blacks, contributing to that kind of problem? We don't talk about it. And that is where the problem is. You see, we never accept any responsibility. There are a lot of people, for example, in Ghana government, if they were outside the country, they would have resigned long time. They themselves will bring in resignation. A prime minister of, is it UK or so, resigned because she made a very, very bad move. Just after 1 month, she resigned. The finance minister also resigned. But in Ghana, we will defend them and we will stay. And it's a happier mindset. So you cannot above. It's as simple as that. So if you think that adulthood is a scam, your life will be a scam. Your life will be a scam. So it starts from here. It starts from how you think about things around you. Then the second thing is that every young person growing up should focus on standards instead of what they think life is about. They should focus on standards. So the point is that when it comes to finance, what is the standard? Work, not, okay, this is how I do my things. A lot of people can use that as an excuse. Me, this is who I am. I cannot change. You cannot change me. You cannot do this. This is who I am. Not about who you are. We really don't care who you are, but we're looking at standards. So if you, for example, even amongst couples, right, two people are in some form of relationship or they're married. One person says, this is how we do our thing. This is how we do our thing. No. It's about what is the standard. Can we work our way towards the standard instead of this is who I am, this is how you are? Because there are standards of our life. If it comes to cleanliness, what are the standards? If it comes to finance, what are the standards? If it comes to health, what are the standards? So you work your way towards the standard because standards is what will set you apart from everybody else and is what is going to add that value that would give you whatever revenue you want. And that is also the problem in Africa. In Africa, no standards at all. We don't have standards. And we do whatever we want to do at work. Nobody really cares. That is why even government project doesn't even work. Outside the country, they have standards and they pay you based on standards. And that is the difference. There are no standards. And now, even if you look at even on the level of morality and stuff like that, you look at US, their standards on that level has fallen. Their standards on systems and finance and those things is up, way up there. But when it comes to issues about life itself, morality and all those things, you see, the standards of US are just falling so low that now even parents are confused how to raise their kids. And that is why they are also struggling. They are also really a mess. Really, because they've also lowered standards about life itself, not about the systems and money and financial and all that. Those things, they have high standards that people go to work late and they even resign, or something happens and they resign. Those ones are there. But now a child can sit somewhere and say they are male system of females and those things, they can, all kinds of things happen, right? So if everybody works their way towards the standards, you realize that your life will not really who is who I am. The point is that are you working towards the standards when that someone to be able to succeed. All of God is the standard that if everybody follows, everybody needs someone to look up to, and that is a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor, right? And growing up for me, mentors have played major role in my life. You know, people that you can look up to, people who can direct you and teach you, people whose shoulder you can, what do you call it? You can stand on to be able to reach the next level of your life. And under mentorship too, we'll talk about friends, you know, friends in your life who can inspire you. If all your friends are rascals, your life is always some way. You know, if your friends have lowered standards, your standards will be low. But if you have friends who are also doing well, and like for example, if you are Mercedes' friend, and Mercedes is your friend, I'm sure you'll do well in life. You'll do well in life. You know, so if you go choose people who really don't have dreams, they live anyhow, they talk anyhow, they dress anyhow, your life is going to be like that. So mentors and mates are so important. Mentors and mates, very, very important. Then probably, let me just add this before I forget. One of the things you can do to protect your adulthood is not to engage in relationships early, right? Don't get engaged in relationships early. Relationships have as a way of damaging you before the right time. The more broken hearts you get, the more damage you get about life. You know, so now you think all men are the same or all women are the same. No, you have related with the wrong people, and you started too early. So teenagers, early 20s, you know, don't date quickly. You know, because it is, you see, when you are single and you're able to manage your emotions, your feelings, you are able to, you know, maximize your singleness, and you are able to, you know, cope with life yourself, right? You feel like, you know, a companionship, yet you are able to hold on. You feel like sleeping around, yet you're able to hold on. You know, your emotional problems, you're able to handle yourself without using relationships to fill that gap. You will be able to survive later on, especially when you marry. You know, when you marry and you realize that your spouse is never enough, he or she is never available. It's one of the scam, if I have to. You know, people think that, you know, all my emotional problems and things will resolve the moment I marry. You are a joke. You're a joke. If you go for weddings, only the singles make noise. Who don't know? Who don't know? They're married couples, so they don't make noise at all. You're welcome to the club. You know, so I think that if people are also not able to be independent as singles in their own emotions, in the things they think they love, they want to do, if they don't become independent, they will struggle. So don't date quickly. Now, I advise people, even before 25, don't date. Wait, grow, grow, put your life together, learn how to be independent. Than to now entertain someone, they will break your heart several times. Now, when you are married, you are too damaged for marriage. Even if you marry an angel, there will be problems. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. That was interesting, especially the part that has to do with relationships. Well, it's unfortunate, but I do agree with you to some extent concerning the fact that you enter relationships early and you get exposed to several heartbreaks, and now managing a relationship is so difficult. I think that, Mercedes, if you would agree, it's one of the areas where a lot of people say adulthood is a scam, but maybe we refine that one and we say that men are scam. And then now men also say women are scam. That's gender. Don't play. So yes, I do agree with you, because I have a couple of friends too who have experienced some hurdles when it comes to relationships, and it has not been the best. And even myself, even with managing relationships, regular relationships that may not necessarily be romantic relationships, there have been some hurdles and then some stumbling blocks that we've had to deal with. I and my friends have had to deal with. So thank you very much for that point. And yes, I think that majorly has to do with entering marriages. So people then are not very much prepared. They enter the wrong relationships and then they get destroyed and they get married. And I think now we are not far from the point where people will be saying marriage na scam. What do you think, Mercedes?
I don't think marriage is a scam. I agree. I think there's a question in the
Mercedes, you are breaking.
Chat box. I don't know if you want to read that.
Mercedes, your line is breaking, so we can't hear you.
There's a question in the chat box. If you could read that and then Doc would answer that before I come in.
Sure.
So that we don't mix it.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, what? Can't you hear? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Okay. I think
I was saying that I think there's a question in the chat box that's begging for an answer. So when you do that, then
okay, sure. So while Doc was speaking, we have Mirabelle here. She says exactly. I think she was saying exactly to the fact that there is their need to prepare right. I think that was something you were hitting on, and then she said exactly to that. And Emmanuel wants to know who defines the standards. You spoke about standards, Doc. You spoke extensively about standards, and Emmanuel wants to know who defines the standards.
Did you ask me?
Yes, please. So the question came while you were presenting.
Is that who defines standards?
Yes. That was
who defines standards?
Yes, who defines the standards?
Well, there are two ways. The first one is what we call divine standards. You know, like I said, I'm a Christian, and the Bible is clear on what standards are, and I follow what the Bible says. So we have divine standards, and divine standards is kind of universal. That it doesn't matter your status, your portfolio, where you come from. When you apply those principles, it works for you. So divine standards. The second one is human standards. Human standards are the things that we have put in place in various areas to make sure that we are able to, manage behaviors and approve of what is best for that community. And those standards can vary, from community to community, from town to town and stuff like that. So we have traditions and culture. It's also standards. When you go to school, we have school rules and regulations. When you go to countries, right? Countries have their own laws. When you go to corporations, they have their own things that they have set as standards, right? But if you look at most of these standards put together by human beings, majority of them, you find some, they gleaned it from divine standards. So there are two standards. But whatever it is, the standard should cause progress. That is the summary of it. Whatever the standard is, it should be able to make sure you are progressing in the right direction.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for that. So if you see me bow my head, please, I'm taking notes because the insight that is being poured out here is a whole lot. I think that it's not going to help us only in it's going to help us in every area of our lives. So, we've tackled relationship, we've tackled education, we've tackled marriage, and so entrepreneurship. I'm sure maybe along the line, Mercedes may speak about entrepreneurship because she's an entrepreneur. I am a disappointed entrepreneur at this point in time, but yes, hopefully I get back on my feet with my business. So someone else wants to know, the person says, Doc, so you have been prepared while growing up. How do you train up a child when all efforts or ways you have been taught is not working? If your children seems not to follow or be moved by all the disciplinary measures to straighten them, you become overwhelmed and yes, you become overwhelmed and may conclude adulthood is too much work. Okay, so I presume this may be a parent asking the question?
Yes,
Did
I
you
would
get
suggest that
clear?
you speak to a, yes, I got it. I think you should speak to a professional about it, maybe a clinical psychologist
Okay.
about it, or a child psychologist. Just speak to someone about it, because sometimes as a parent, you think you're doing everything right, but what you've been doing may not be effective. And you know, people who have gone into that studies, there are counselors who are into those things. Please speak to someone about it. Because I've had parents come to see me and they realize that every method they used was just wrong.
Wow.
And even for, it depends on even the age of the child. You know, before 2 years, there are things you should do. Between 2 and 6, there are things you should do. From 6 to 12, then from 12 to 19, because children grow in stages, and every stage and its own cognitive development, and what to would appreciate or what work best, right? So there are stages. So if you don't know, applying the right principles at the wrong time, you know, and that is where parents get it wrong. You know, so I think they should be able to talk to someone. There are things you do to those who are below 2 years, right? Between 2 to 6 and 6 to 12, they are all stages, and you would have to offend. You would have to know.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc, for that. There's another question. It says, at what age do you think dating is appropriate? I think dating early age would have been better, but if it also depends on the mindset we go into the relationship. I think the person means it depends on the mindset we go into the relationship with. And going into relationship with the mindset of taking care of each other is a problem. So the person wants to know at what age it's appropriate to date.
Yes, yes, let me make this categorical statement. Okay. You see, when it comes to dating and marriage, right, there are problems. There are problems that come up when you start dating too early. One, the reason why I mentioned mid-20s is that the part of the brain, speak to any psychologist, they will tell you, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making matures fully by mid-20s, around 25, 26, thereabout. So that is why before 25, almost all your decisions are not too okay, right? And so that is why even some governments will put voting at age 18. I think they should be shifted to 25. Wow. Because the part of the brain responsible for decision making, right? You know, what do you call it? It's about mid-20s. That is the first thing. Secondly, the problem with early dating is that you are still growing, you are still discovering. So the likelihood that you're going to make a mistake about your choice is very high. Very, very, very high. That is why a lot of people, by the time they are married, they've been involved in 2, 3, 4, 5 relationships already. And every relationship has a way of damaging you. Your trust, your mindset about the opposite sex. You become too wise, too suspecting, too jealous about things because you've had an experience. 3, the likelihood that you compromise when you stay longer in a relationship is very high, right? The longer you stay in a relationship, the more likely you'll be so familiar with the person, and the more likely that you guys will be messing up. You'll be sleeping together. You'll be doing all kinds of things that married couples do together. And research will tell you that those who cohabit or get involved sexually in those things before marriage, infidelity goes up and divorce goes up, because premarital sex is only a rehearsal for extramarital sex. It's as simple as that. You can read all kinds of research that will tell you that. 4, if you start dating like age 18, you are too immature to be able to handle the challenges of the relationship, such that you'll be more emotional towards the relationship instead of being, applying wisdom every point of your relationship. So a lot of the mistakes that people make, a lot of the arguments, and a lot of the things that they actually go through may be unnecessary if they were a bit matured. All those things wouldn't have come up. The fifth one I want to add is that, for example, you start dating at age 18. You are with this guy for 6 years. You start doing all kinds of things together, investing all kinds of things. By the time they are 24, 25, and they are a bit matured and a bit stable, now their eyes are a bit opened. Now they look at the same person they were in love with when they were 18. They realize that no, there is something wrong. And so a lot of them break up, not because they are dating a bad person, but because they've now outgrown the person. You see, they've now, suddenly their eyes are open and stuff like that. And imagine dating for 6 years and the person tells you that you are not the one I want to marry. It's a bigger loss. The pain is more intense and severe, right? And the more you delay your own time. Because if, for example, you date at 18 years, it doesn't, you date at 18, 3 years, it doesn't work out. You're 22, 21 years. The same mistake, you date another 4 years, 25. You take a lot more time to heal. And that is how come a lot of people delay their marriages, because they've been involved so much in relationships. Every breakup causes some pain. They take another 2-3 years to heal. By the time they open their eyes, they're in their 30s or 40s. And now they'll say that, oh, I was not born for marriage. All men are the same. All women are the same. I don't think I need a man. Marriage is a choice. All those statements are a product of pain from failed relationship because they were never guided. You see, so personally, I don't even encourage dating. I encourage marriage because unfortunately, the kind of dating we have in this generation is marriage. You see, you meet someone in town, maybe after a month or two, or even that same day, the person proposes to you dating, then you start. Someone you don't know, someone you have no idea what the future is about. The person hasn't even committed to marriage. Then you start, what we call dating, to know the person. You don't need even dating to know anybody, because when people realize you are dating them, they pretend. And that is where the problem is. You can be casual friends with someone and study them and know who you are going into that kind of relationship with. So you meet the person and you start dating and stuff like that. They start even sleeping from day one. They start cooking from day one, bathing together from day one. Now after 2-3 months, 4 months, you notice something about the person and you want to walk away. Why do you commit your heart to someone you don't know and a venture that you have no idea of the outcome? That is where all the problems you have. I deal with divorce cases, and you can see a trend, before marriage, because your life before marriage will determine your life after marriage. And that is why for me, I'm very, very hard and strict about this dating thing before marriage, because all the marital problems, most of them began before marriage.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. I think that if we are not careful, we'll turn our session into a relationship and marriage because the comments that
I have struck a chord. I have struck a chord.
You have. The comments coming in.
You can take it or leave it. We are the clinic to heal your heart when you come, so that's fine. You can take it or leave it.
I think that maybe we would organize another session and then Doc will speak to all these comments specifically, because I think that relationships are not the only things that make people purport that adulthood is a scam. There are more issues that we need to look at. So I see some comments. Some people said they did not agree with Doc, but Doc says he's waiting for you. You can use your heart as a try and error, and then he's ever ready. He's ever ready to help you mend your heart. That is a good one. So some people have sent in questions. We did put a link across for people to ask questions or drop questions they would like us to read to our speakers. So I would go to the link and then I'll read out those questions. And let me see whether we have any more questions in the chat box. So please, those who are saying that did not agree with Doc on the relationship issues, please watch out for another session. Doc will be speaking specifically to your issues.